Hey y'all, it's Rhonda Mary, and you are listening to Costly Conversations.
Welcome to Costly Conversations. I'm super excited because we have the one and only Rhonda Mary with us today. I'm super excited because we are talking a little bit about Black History Month, why it's important to her, and a few other things, including the fact that she's been nominated for a Gundy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring her on and talk to her just a little bit about that. Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I did want to just start off and say congratulations on being nominated for the Gundy Awards, our firearms space awards for those who are doing awesome things in the 2A scene and the gun scene, being influential men and women of the space. And obviously, you've been an influential lady in the space for quite a bit since you've come on the scene. Thank you for all that you do, and congratulations on being nominated. Hope you win.
Thank you so much. I hope I win too. And honestly, the nomination really took me by surprise, especially when you look at some of the people that I'm alongside in these categories and the amount of influence and people that they're reaching. And so that I was thought of, I don't know, it really just makes me excited. It makes me even more excited about what I'm doing in the future and letting me know that I am on the right path.
Yeah, so I mean, speaking of what you're doing and what you're doing in the future, I did want to just jump right into this topic because this is interesting to me as somebody who creates content has a weekly show. You've had a weekly show for the past 2 3 years. How long have you been doing it?
I don't know. It's probably been 4 years. It's
Golly,
been like a good amount of time.
yeah. So 4 years, minimal breaks. Every Tuesday. Hey y'all, it's Rhonda Mary for those who know
Yeah.
you. But in the last few weeks, you let your viewers know that you are going to be suspending the show.
Yes.
Why?
Well, honestly, it was not the easiest decision. And I know a lot of people out there watching may look at YouTubers, they may look at content creators and they think, oh, that's so easy. You just have the easy life and oh, it just looks so fun. But it's a job. It's a job. It takes a lot of time researching, it takes a lot of effort. A lot of times you have to push through. When you aren't feeling well, you have to do it when the momentum is up or when it's down, and it's just a lot that comes with it. And so, I've decided to at this time not focus on the weekly show, but I am pushing forward with my short format content, just to give me a little bit more balance between my life, my actual everyday life, and what I'm doing online. So it could
Yeah.
just be very time consuming. It could be overwhelming. And especially when you are going into the political space, because I don't just cover 2A content. When you're going into the political space, you're talking about trending topics. It could be taxing. And I would imagine it could be even more taxing for women. That may be a little bit biased. I don't know. So maybe just I'll say mostly for myself. But, even though I talk about 2A rights and I talk about all these different topics, I'm not some hard body. Like sometimes some of these things that we're talking about, it can affect you. And so just needed to step back a little bit, but I'm still going forward with my short format content, making those connections every day with people on Twitter and Instagram, and still educating people to the best of my ability.
Well, we definitely. I know for myself, I'm thankful. I feel like I speak for many of us who enjoy the content, who enjoy these topics, who enjoy your point of view. And I just want to touch on that for just a little bit because I know that it's interesting that we have this parasocial relationship. Even myself with other content creators, who, if I don't have a personal relationship with you, and I personally I don't talk to you that often, but it's interesting when we do get a chance to talk, that it's like, oh well, Rhonda is not always like this machine that's just on and like dogging people out on Twitter. Like she does have a more human side where, like you said, some of these topics are draining and sad to see. Like, you're a human being. You have to deal with these emotions just like everybody else. And even having to battle it out, obviously you have to have some thick skin if you're going to be on places like Twitter and the comment section on YouTube, and even some of the people who might come at you live, and you have to see that as you're live streaming, and people saying stuff, and you just either you're reading it, or you're choosing not to respond, or you're hoping your moderators do a good job at cutting it off before you have to like have a reaction on camera. And I don't know if that's specifically you, but I've been there. Um, I just have a greater appreciation having been on this side of the desk and realizing, like, dang, it's hard. Telling your family, hey, I got to go do this thing for an hour and a half, 2 hours is hard. You know, Losing opportunities. I know, if I don't know your personal life, but if you're in the dating scene, or if you wanted to do something more, get married, I don't even know if you are married. I'm not going to ask, but one of those things that's hard to be like, hey, Tuesdays can't do it. Oh, let's do something spontaneous. Can't do it. We got a thing. So
Right. Mm-hmm.
strong appreciation for the sacrifice for the last several years, and realizing like, okay, we can still do the short form content. It's a little easier, but the commitment to sit behind the desk for this allotted amount of time, it's just not going to work right now. At least not right now.
At
So
least not right now.
yeah, I
I
can
I
appreciate it.
just, want a little bit more free time, and just focusing on, because even though I think this modern society, we spend a lot of time, making connections through social media, and it's great. It opens opportunity. It's definitely opportunities for education and networking and all these other things. But when you just go outside in the real world, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Like, the birds are chirping, the bees are buzzing. Like, sometimes it just feels good to not worry about what's going on the other side of the camera. And ironically enough, don't get it twisted, like I still have plenty going on, just trying to keep up with my Instagram. So even what seems like such a huge component to a lot of people is really adding just a few hours back to my actual life each week. So it's kind of weird to even explain to people that haven't been on this side.
Yeah.
Like, it could take me almost a whole day of researching just to get prepared for one live show. Especially early on, when I was like really hitting those topics that it's like, you may have not even heard about this because da 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 da, and this is why they're keeping it from you, and really digging into showing people like the ins and outs of those things. Like,
Yeah, because you
you
used
know,
to pull up articles and just go with multiple articles.
yeah. And so, it takes a lot of time. And don't get me wrong, like, I've had people that have literally supported me from day one, and I will never take that for granted. I will never take for granted that I've had people not only from all over the country, but from the world, that have sent me emails saying, thank you for this, or I didn't know about this, or you made me confident in my views, or speaking up about this. And so, what I've been able to do in the amount of time that I have, I'm very grateful for that. Like, just me cutting on that camera that first day from my freaking bedroom, saying, hey, I want to talk to y'all about this, has brought me to where I am today. And it's crazy because I'm not even finished yet. But within this time, I've been able to go all over the country speaking. I've been able to meet some really dope people. I've been able to network. I've been able to be paid from some of the things that I'm doing, and it's just a great thing. It's unfortunate that when I came into it, it was at the height of a lot of censorship, you know, a lot of that. I used to, when I first started putting videos out, I could you could see my videos on a front page of like Google, popping up at the top of Google. I had those screenshots. I gotta find them somewhere. um and then all of a sudden, the algorithms, especially when it would come up around election time, like things would just get wonky, and it would get harder and harder for me to reach people. And it's like, okay, for the time and effort I'm putting into this, and then weighing that with other things, and then it's already harder when you're mixing the political with the guns. And that's a whole different, thing, because I'm gonna just leave that right there. But it's just a lot, it's just a lot. So right now, I'm basically trying to compartmentalize and figure out, okay, what works better between my work life and my home life, and just this balancing act. What feels better, what works better, what helps me save on time, what helps me be more energetic and not as taking on some of the emotions of like these stories and all that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a fact, and like you said, mixing the pew pews, the guns, the gats, whatever you want to call them, with politics. Where you talk about politics, you might make it, but you start talking about any sort of firearm, YouTube's go like ixnay on the guns nay, like, and they just kill you. And like, it's really interesting. I'm sure you've seen it like early on when you were like really popping off. It was probably a lot more rewarding in the sense of the AdSense and things like that, where it's like, okay, this makes dollars, it makes sense.
Right.
I can
Hmm.
commit the few hours or the full day really to pulling up these topics, to doing these things. I can even sacrifice some of my emotional health, where you're having to be drained, and then you have to watch this horrible story, hear about all these people dying, have to feel like, dang, is the world really out to get me? And I tell you what, I was telling my wife this the other day. I was like, man, sometimes I wish, maybe this is too much to share and I shouldn't share it, but sometimes I wish I could just go live on a mountaintop. And I'm not going to ask you what she asked me, but I was like, yeah, but I want to just live out on a mountaintop and
It's
just
very tempting.
like, bro, like, just seeing everybody get hyped up about everything, and this person got killed by the police, and this person is trying to stop you from doing this, and these people are restricting these rights, and this person is telling you got to get this bang bang and this, and you're like, can I just go
A
away?
little of it is not healthy to a certain extent.
Yeah,
It's not healthy, especially when um I forgot something I reposted the other day to like my stories on Instagram, where some people were talking about this phenomenon, particularly for black people, where these police shootings, right? Like we kind of psychologically take on the, oh, if it's one person, it affects the group mentality. And I think this has actually been studied. I can't, the name of it is not coming to me right now.
yeah, I've I've
But
I've seen
there
that.
is like there's a truth to that. You know what I mean? A
Hmm.
100 years ago, people only knew what was going on in their neighborhood. People only knew what was going on in their city. Now we are in some ways taking on the emotional baggage of people all the way on the other side of the country, all the way in a different coast, sometimes taking on their emotions, their personalities, their politics, like all of these different things that I've had people try to I've had people try to impose certain ideologies on me, just because it's like, oh, you're black, you must think like this, or you must have been raised like this, or oh, you're a woman, you must have experienced this. And I'm like, I'm sorry to tell you, like, that just hasn't been my experience. But it's this, like, almost this collective consciousness that, when you think about it, consciousness is supposed to be enlightening, but it's almost to the point where people are being forced into these boxes or these labels or these understandings that they really don't understand, or taking on these attitudes. And I don't know, it's just really weird. I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago, and I was talking about how it's weird because, even we were talking about cultures and how in different cultures things can be so different, and it doesn't even have to be quote unquote cultures, it can even be just from coast to coast, right? And I was talking about, one example I used was how I was on the west coast. I was in, I think we were in like California. Yeah, we were in California. I went to visit California a few years back with my friends, and it was a big group of us, and half of us were from Mississippi and half of us were from California. And so we rented this beautiful, I mean, this beautiful, just decked out home that was like in the hills. I think it was like in, Beverly Hills or something. And it had like 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, elevators. Like, it was really, really nice, and we were partying, like living it up. And so at some point, two police officers come knock on the door, and they're like, hey, y'all, in this area we just get a lot of complaints, can y'all just turn down the music? So the Mississippi people were like, okay, cool, no problem, like, it is what it is, whatever. The California people was like, this is insane, this is the craziest thing I heard, this is so racist, they only came over here because we were black. And I'm like, if this is the reaction that y'all are having to this, y'all really haven't experienced nothing for real, for real. And you can
Yeah.
instantly see all of us were black, you know what I mean? But you can instantly see that difference, like that cultural difference. Another time was when I was traveling through Pennsylvania, and I was with a friend, and we stopped by a gun shop to look at firearms. And this guy was talking to me, and he had what sounded kind of like a Jersey accent that was, to me, just sounded rough. In the way he was talking to me, the way he was handling me, I was finna go full neck roll, like, who you think you talking to? You know what I mean? And my friend that was with me had to be like, nah, he doesn't mean it like that. It's just, I understand you may take it some way because of how he's saying it, but I think it's really a culture difference. Like, try not to, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
be offended, because me, I'm listening to both of y'all and I hear what both of y'all are saying, but I think it's just a disconnect happening. So, you know, I see how you're taking it, but don't just write it off. I think it's like just one of those things, like how we talk type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time I saw the guy, we were cool. We just moved on, and it was just never any problems. But
Yeah.
the way I reacted to it, it was like, I just, like, don't be talking to me like that. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's,
I get that. People from the north, when they're oddly direct, oddly straightforward,
yes,
and the volume is unnecessarily loud. And you're
yes.
like, hey, yo, what the heck? Like, bro, I'm gonna need
You
you
get what I'm
to like pull up or
saying?
like don't. Like, fix your face, fix your tone, fix everything. What's happening?
Yes.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, to me, even as I've traveled to different places, my experiences on the west coast, up north, I've had an experience in DC where the people, I just don't, they're just not as pleasant, especially people north, northeast. West coast is a little bit nicer, but my experiences have just been different than when I'm traveling through the South. It's just a cultural difference. You know what I mean? even in Miami, I always say this about Miami. To me, Miami doesn't feel like Florida. You know what I mean? And people that have been there, I think they'll kind of get what I'm saying. And Miami is cool. I don't have anything against it, but it's just a different feel. It's a fast pace. You know, you go different places and you feel the energy. And when you're from a certain thing, you know, and you're used to that and you're moving through these different spaces, you deal with it, you observe it, you take it in differently, right? And
Hmm.
so yeah, I don't know. I just think it's interesting. And so as I've thought about this in the landscape of when I get on this mic, and oh, even the first time I heard a Hispanic person use the N word, my neck went like,
Yeah, it's different.
but everybody else was like, it was just another day,
Right.
you
And
know?
it's just like, okay, I guess we don't have to, get in a fight for no reason.
Like that's not happening in Mississippi, y'all. I'm
No, not
just
in
starting.
Mississippi. It's not
You
allowed.
know, so
Yeah.
it's like these little differences that may not seem like anything, but when you're moving through these spaces and we get on these mics and you don't know who's gonna click on this video and watch this video and how they're gonna observe you, you know, or leave feeling, you know, whatever feeling they may have from the things that you've discussed. And
Yeah.
so being on the internet just throws you into the you know the I don't even know what word I'm looking for
Yeah. I
here.
mean, this is like a great ether of a billion people who can touch
Yeah.
you. Like a billion
Yeah.
lights out there, and you can absorb all of that. And it's so much all at once. And a
Yes.
billion people can leave a comment on your video. And you can't read them all, but you can read some of them. And that will impact you some way, somehow.
Oh my goodness. I'll never forget one of the first videos that really did numbers on YouTube was I talked about Meghan Markle. And I talked about how she like wasn't black. You know what I mean? Like, well, I didn't really talk about how she wasn't black. Let me take that back and backtrack. I didn't focus on she wasn't black. I more so focused on this marriage is not a win for black people. I think it was an article from like the New York Times or
I think I remember
something
that video.
that
Yeah.
came out and was like, "Oh, this is such a win for black women." And I'm
Right.
like, "Wow, like that's insulting. That's
Yeah.
insulting." Meghan Markle getting married into quote unquote royalty doesn't do anything for the life of the average black woman. Not to even mention that she doesn't even close to have the phenotype of somebody that looks like me. So what are you saying here to little girls that have actual dark skin, wide noses, kinky hair, and to tell them, look, here's Meghan Markle. She is a win for you. It was clearly absurd and ridiculous. And that video did so many, I mean, I can't even remember how many views it did. Well over 50,000, and might even did 100,000. I don't quite remember. But when I tell you, I had people coming for me, like I had people coming, everything that they could say about me. You know, my accent, accusing me of being unintelligent, and oh, you're just trying to cape for black men, and just everything that they could pick apart about me, they said it about me. And when I tell you, after reading those comments, I did not make another video for probably like a month. So when you talk about when you get on this internet, you cannot have thin skin. And let me just say, because I don't want to completely be a Debbie Downer. I obviously had a lot of people that agreed with me, but I also had a lot of people that did not like the video. And when you first get into it, you're gonna look at the dislikes. You're going to look at what people are saying. You're going to look at what people are saying to critique you. It's just human nature. It's gonna happen. And so I mean, some of those comments just stuck out to me like a sore thumb. And I initially didn't handle it very well. you know. And so I did not make any videos. I think it took me probably like a month and a half, even just to get up the guts to make another video again. And I think after that, that was probably the last time I felt that way. I was like, all right, Rhonda, if you're going to actually do this, be serious about it and be committed to it. You know, you have to find another way to navigate this and not be as emotional. And some people watching this may think like, oh, I would never. No, you have no clue. You have no clue how it feels for hundreds of people to be literally picking you apart until it happens. You just it's you just can't relate. It's just something you will never understand until you actually deal with it. And so in that regard, when it comes to celebrities and they deal with, you know, the criticism and all that, and I'm not even to that extent. And I could really see how it could weigh over you over
Yeah.
time, weigh on you over time.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. I mean, you look at athletes, and the reporters go to athletes and it's like, hey, have you heard what people are saying? And then they'll be like, oh, we don't look at that. And you're like, we know you do, but in order to like psychologically defend yourself, you have to say it out loud. I'm not looking at that. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care, to insulate
And
yourself a little bit.
at some point, you'll get to the point where you don't look at that.
Yeah.
Like now, I've gotten to the point where when I post my most controversial thoughts on Instagram or Twitter, I post it, I close the app, and then I decide if I want to come back later and engage and deal with the
Right.
comment.
I've
I'm way
noticed
more
that.
engaging. And it's I don't know, it's kind of fun too because I'll be like, let's
Posting
argue, and
ghost.
then I don't even
She said
argue.
she said
Like
posting
I
ghost.
never come back and argue.
Yeah. No, I mean it is really interesting to see how you've done it and some of the evolution. I haven't been watching your stuff that long, but kind of seeing the upward trend, because I remember the first time we did an interview together, I was like, let me do a little bit of homework. And from your very first video, you're like a different person. Yeah. How old were you when you first started? Can you remember?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It was almost like you were
Probably,
like a little girl. I was like, is she even like out of high school? Like
it's so weird because Olivia Rondu. Do you know who she
Olivia.
is?
Yeah, yeah. She's been on the show.
Did you interview her or
Yeah, she's been
no?
on the show. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. Okay, so I think this was the first time I met Olivia. I don't remember if we were at a CPAC or a Young Americans for Liberty. I don't remember what event we were at, but
It
we were
wasn't
at
at
some,
Maj's event, was it?
it might have been the first solutionary summit. Yep, it might have been the first solutionary summit. It sure was, because I remember I believe it was her and she was with either Sharice or somebody else that's gonna come to me in a second. Anyway, when she came up to me and she just gave me the biggest hug and she was like, oh my God, like you were one of the first people that I used to watch on YouTube and you really inspired me when I was like so young and all this. And I'm like, wait, like what you trying to say? You know what I mean? Like the way
She
she
said,
was
"Yo."
describing it.
She said, "I look
The
up to you like an elder."
Yeah, the way she was describing it was like she was little watching my videos, and
Well, I
obviously
mean,
it had
she
only been
is.
a couple of years, but
I think she
I
just turned
thought it was
21 though, so it is kind of
I
interesting.
thought it was interesting, but it was also funny. And it's still a very good story to tell because one, you never know who is watching. You never
Right.
know who's inspired by you. You just don't know. That's number one. And number two, Olivia has far surpassed me. And
She's killing it.
you know what I mean? She's far surpassed me and what she's doing. Like, you know, she's on the news now and just all types of things that she has going on. And it's just I'm very proud of her and it's just really great to see what she's doing. But you just never know. You never know who is looking at you and
Yeah.
saying, dang, like I could do that. I'm interested in that. Or
Mm-hmm.
this person gave me the motivation, the inspiration to speak my mind. So
No,
it's
you're
cool,
absolutely
and
right.
it's a good story for me to tell people when they see her on TV. I can be like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
it's funny because a lot of people, you never know where you're going to be because sometimes you end up in such a place where people, I think this is some sort of quote. People are gonna tell other people how they met you. I'm like, dang,
Hmm.
think about that. Like, think about people who watch you right now and people who watch Olivia. I mean, we're talking about her right now. It's like, when'd you meet Olivia? Oh yeah, I met Olivia here, and she used to look up to me, but look at her now. It's like, bro, back in
Oh,
my
don't
day,
do that. Don't do that. You're making me sound old again.
old what? No, never, no, no. But it is really cool. I mean, I'm gonna talk about myself for just a second. It's really crazy that sometimes people will comment on my stories and I'll go back and forth with them. I'll talk to anybody. My DMs are open at this point. I don't get that much traffic, so it's really cool that like I brought a guy on to do an interview the other day, and he was like, "Hey man, thanks for letting me come on the show, bro." And I was like, "No big deal. Like it's fine." And then I was talking to somebody else about it, and they were like, "Bro, like people actually care about what you're doing. Like they look up to it, even if they don't like say it all the time. What you're doing is kind of cool. You've had on a lot of really cool people, and we appreciate that. We appreciate what you're doing." I'm like, you know, I just look at it like hard work. Like I'm here grinding. I got my laptop literally all day trying to figure stuff out. You know, working all night trying to get clips out, do stuff, and it's just a job for me. But for you guys, it's something special, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Like I'm not dismissing it. I'm trying to wrap my head around why it's so meaningful to people. And maybe you guys, the listeners or viewers, can help me figure that out, or somebody has an idea. I would love to know. But I think now is a really good time to take a quick break and plug some of the people who are supporting the show. So we're going to do that right away with trying to figure that out. One of the major supporters of the show, Blackout Coffee. I'm not drinking coffee tonight because I'm not trying to stay up all night. But if you guys are interested in coffee, if you guys love coffee, if you guys have never drank coffee and maybe you're looking to try it out because it's like a big deal, coffee pods are the way to go. Ooh, if we can get the lighting just right. There's very few brands that exist in society today that are pro Second Amendment. A lot of companies, when it comes down to supporting people who are interested in firearms or even allowing the firearms message to be out there, they think it's either too controversial or they will completely cut it off, including some of your favorite brands like Amazon and other places. Stop buying your coffee from people who don't support what you support. Support people like Blackout Coffee. And if you buy a bag, 5-pound bags, those are awesome. Some pods, whatever you want to buy, some tea, some cocoa. Use the code Atlas10. I'm going to link it down below in the show notes and in the YouTube side. And just click it. Support the show. And every penny goes right back into making this thing cool. There are surprisingly a lot of expenses that come with making this show. So the more you guys support, the better it can be. Thank you so much. And back to the show. Rhonda. It is here we go. Such a pleasure to have you on the show, and I appreciate that you took a little bit of time to kind of be vulnerable with kind of the history of how we got here today with the Rhonda Mary Hey Y'all Tuesdays, just some of the behind the scenes stuff of what it really takes like internally to make crazy controversial content, to realize that you're gonna put something out there, and if 3 people like it, 7 people are gonna think you're awful. Yeah. Specifically, I think I want to talk about this for a second, and maybe it'll get us all removed from the platform. But I remember specifically there was a story where there was somebody going in. It was a bathroom story with this about transgender persons, and you had some opinions about it. This was in California, And somebody actually sent me a DM saying like, "Hey, like, I know Rhonda was on your show. Can you talk to Rhonda about her stance on um, queer and trans people?" And I'm like, me and Rhonda have basically no relationship. Like she just came on the show, just did me a solid. Like we don't talk. Why do you think I have any standing to tell her anything? Plus, she's a grown woman. Like I'm not her friend like that. I mean, we're friendly, but like we're not buddy buddy. I'm not your dad. I'm not in any position to tell you like, hey, you can't talk about these things. Plus, you're allowed to talk about what you want to talk about. And if you have a position, you can hold it. That said, I know you've held a lot of positions that some people would hold to be like mean or cruel, or somebody might even throw the bigoted word around. How
A
do you how
very
do you process that?
small, a very small percentage of people. Let's start there because one thing that I have really learned and try to hit home with my YouTube channel is that there are more people across the country that feel like me than people that are being elevated, these voices that are being pushed by the mainstream media, being pushed by the algorithms that are these fringe voices. Um, you said, how do I deal with this?
Yeah, like how do you? I suppose you just kind of answered that in the sense that you've come to realize that really most people agree with you when it comes to some of these more controversial topics such as
Let
bathrooms and
me
stuff.
let me just be for real, for real. A lot of people ain't got the guts, and excuse my language, a lot of people ain't got the balls to do what I do. And there are tons of people that email me all the time, message me all the time. When I see people in person, they dap me up. They tell me how awesome what I'm doing is, but they also tell me that they fear for my safety. They also tell me that they wouldn't ever get caught online saying what I say, whether that be because they don't want to stand out, they don't want to lose a job, they don't want to lose friends, whatever it may be. So let's be clear, there are several thousands and thousands of people that agree with me. So I think we should start there because that's a very important part of this conversation. But nonetheless, I've decided to take upon myself to say the things that a lot of people are scared to say, that has us in the position where you have a lot of these Looney Tunes running around in the first place, thinking that their position is the superior one. It's because of all the people that sit home and watch the people like me that never say anything, that don't say anything in the comments because they do not have the guts to do so, because they answer to some authority figure, whoever that may be, or because they are, it's some, and I can't really, I mean, I got red hair, I got piercings and all that stuff. So, you know, however, it's a very particular type that a lot of people are scared of. But ironically enough, these are the same kids that were probably getting thrown in trash cans when they were in high school, getting bullied. And now that they're older and they finally have a voice on social media, they want to take it out on the rest of us. Well, unfortunately, I'm not just going to take that sitting down. I'm going to get on camera and talk for, well, I'm not anymore, but I did for years, about just a very common sense perspective, which is the fact that I support freedom. People have a right to be whoever the heck they want to be in their brain, in their mind. They can live in la la land. They can live in utopia, euphoria, whatever it is, whoever they want to be in their head. Okay. But the moment that you start to make me say certain things, make me not say certain things, or or you try to mess with children, that's where I draw the freaking line. And so I want to be very clear, because for people who may not be familiar with me, when you bring up the trans issue, a lot of people are going to make assumptions. They are going to think, oh, she's one of those people that have been saying these evil things about hateful things online. No, I have tons of trans supporters. I am also myself a big supporter of gays against groomers and trans against groomers on social media. I am from the younger generation. We had plenty of gay people, lesbian people, whatever, to go to school with us, to grow up with us, that I am still friends with. You know what I mean? So it's like, but we have to draw the line. I'm not gonna play in fairy tale land with adults. I'm not going to do it. Now, other people are welcome to do so, but I just, and I'm not trying to change this whole show, but I just wanted to make that clear for people that may not be familiar with me and they're sitting at home watching and they're thinking, okay, because you know how people do, oh, I need to
Right.
figure out what box to put you in, left versus
Exactly.
right,
Hmm.
racist versus non-racist, anti-trans versus pro-trans. It's always these dichotomies, and it's like sometimes that's not the answer. And I think in a lot of ways, not only was a huge part of what I've done with YouTube is kind of finding that middle ground in that everyday perspective, but really exposing that some of these things that are being talked about and being done and being pushed to the forefront are more fringe things. And when you really talk to the everyday average American, do most people really agree with Mark Lamont Hill that men can get pregnant? Like, let's be for real. But I don't want to,
Yeah,
because
it's
we
that's
could go into a
we
whole
we could
different.
go on for a really long time. Well, at least I know you can. I would be struggling to keep up just because you got a motor for it. That said, I'm thank you for clarifying because I do understand what you're saying is people will hear my statement and misinterpret intentionally or not, just trying to figure out, okay, so she's a this or she's a that, or oh, she's one of them Republicans. She's a MAGA person. She's an ultra MAGA. And I suppose I'm just gonna ask because I've asked before, but not to you directly. I was in one of your live streams and I was like, what is Rhonda's like political background? Like I can't tell because she's clearly for the empowerment of black people, yet she is doesn't seem like she's like totally against, at least at the time it didn't seem like you were like totally against Trump, like oh he's a racist, this and that, as many people were saying, which for those who are listening, I had a hard time with that claim. There's some anecdotal evidence that was given, and even still I have a hard time with that claim. I think he's an ignorant old white guy, but I don't know that the term racist applies to every ignorant old white guy. Where do you find yourself on this political spectrum? Can you even answer that, or are you just politically fluid, as one might say?
Well, so originally, how I started out, how my YouTube channel actually started, and one of my first, big number videos was my walk away video. I was raised as a Democrat. Obviously, I'm from Mississippi. I came from a very religious background. And so, even though my family had these very conservative values, probably even more so, well, I don't even know if I could even say that, but a very conservative background in how we were raised and living, but was raised to vote Democrat. Like, it was a part of the tradition, just like any other tradition. But then as I started actually looking at the cities that are Democrat, the way the demographics look, the things that some of the Democrats push, I was like, my soul doesn't resonate with this. My soul doesn't resonate with transitioning children or telling children I can never say that word, pre-teenage children, that they were born in the wrong body. Like, my spirit doesn't resonate with that. My spirit doesn't resonate with them trying to push further and further the boundaries of when you can abort a child. Even one, I think that was the governor of Virginia at the time, who was even alluding to the fact that the baby, you could decide as the baby was coming out.
Yeah.
You have people pushing this idea that, you know,
It sounds like murder.
uh,
I don't know.
you have some people, pushing this idea that the baby is not human until it literally uh breaks the canal, and a lot of other things, even gun control, right? The more I learned and learning the history of gun control, and this idea that I'm supposed to wait on police that we already don't trust for real like that in our communities, and this idea that I'm just supposed to sit around and wait on them like a damsel in distress, and really learning the history of it made me feel even more empowered. So I started looking at all these angles of things that I don't agree with, and then kind of side eyeing my parents, because it's like, y'all didn't even raise me like this, you know? Um, and then I made that walk away video talking about it. And I'm like, I'm just opening up to this. I'm just new to this. As I'm going to research some of the things that y'all said Trump is doing or Trump is saying, I spent all of my, childhood just listening to other people, authority figures. Vote like this because it's the tradition. Like, you just do what your parents do, what your parents did. And so I had spent so many years like that. And it was like a light bulb went off. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I have to, like, I'm an adult. I have to be responsible for my positions, what I stand on. And I need to know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing and making the decisions that I make. Like, I'm a sovereign human being. I can't just be moving and doing because other people say so. And so as I started exploring these topics, I'm like, hey, I'm going to take you guys on this journey with me. And this was ironically around the time of the fake news, fake news, fake news. And I'm like, if this guy keeps saying it's fake news, it has to at least be some merit to that. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to let him tell me it's fake news, but I'm also not going to let anybody else tell me that it's not. So I need to go find out for myself. And so I started digging in these topics, and the headline would be this, and I would do the research, and I would find these totally different things. One that sticks out in my mind was, I'll never forget this, and it's plenty, but it was this one time where AOC did this story, and she was like, oh my God, they have the children drinking out of toilets. They have the Hispanics drinking out of toilets, right? And so I'm like thinking, oh my God, this is the most inhumane thing that I've ever heard. Like, the United States has people, human beings drinking out of toilets. I need to go investigate this more. And I go to investigate it. Now, keep in mind, this is a viral news cycle, which means that you have millions of people all across the country thinking that migrants are drinking out of toilets. And as I go to do more investigation, as our actual journalist are supposed to do, little old me from Mississippi goes to get more information. And I am able to find out that there is a system where your toilet is connected to your like your drinking supply. And I know that sounds weird. I don't have the perfect way of describing this. um but the water that you don't drink from the drinking supply then moves to the bowl for the toilet. And so it's very similar to the same system that they use in Japan, which actually just helps you save on water. So it's not the water from the toilet, but it's like two systems attached to each other. And so they have the pictures on Google and all that. If it's pretty easy to find. But these systems are used in a lot of uh, like facilities, like prisons, things like that. And so it wasn't reused water that they were being forced to drink. And so me going to find that story, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is what the news is saying, but this is what's actually happening. And I have to tell y'all this. Now that I know this, I have to share it. Now that I see it, I can't unsee it. And so I would share stories like this, and people would be like, oh my God. Because we live in a culture where everything is so microwave now. People don't like to read, and they'll tell you, hey, Democrats don't like to read. No, Republicans too, whoever too, all across the political aisles. You have people that are so headline focused that people don't go for more information. And it's a mix of reasons why. Um, from people just don't like to read anymore. People don't have the time. People are so many things being thrown at us at once. It's several reasons why. And the media, the journalists, they know this. They know this and they take advantage of it. It's been studies on the fact that people, so like, I don't know, it's somewhere between 75% of people don't read past the first paragraph of articles, news articles.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And even myself, I find myself struggling to do the bare minimum of, oh, let's say you put a video up and it's like, hey, read the caption for more information. And I'm like, okay, let me hop into the caption. Okay, it's more than a paragraph. Do I have time? Yes, I have time. I'm on this app for another hour. What are you talking about? I have time.
And
But
it's by design. It's by design. It's
yeah,
something that I didn't know. I didn't know, but I learned this a couple of years ago. After the OJ trials, the OJ trials were a like cultural phenomenon. Like people were obsessed with OJ, and it was showing on TVs around the clock. And before the OJ trials, you had actual real deal journalism where people were giving people the facts and letting them decide. After the OJ trials, or during, I should say, there was a significant shift in like these personalities, these commentator personalities, where people would come to watch the news for their personalities and wanting to hear their opinions, and their opinions started to be presented as facts. And after that, the news cycle was never the same. And so that's why now you'll have like a Don Lemon, that will, or even commentators, right? Like a Angela Rye or Mark Lamont Hill. You'll have them, and people are coming to listen to their aha moment, or their got you,
mm-hmm.
their snapback moment, or their actual opinion, as opposed to this is the news, this is the facts, this is what happened. I gave it to you. Here we are. You
Right.
know,
I mean, and
and so
you can fill up more time and run more ads if you literally spend an hour telling me about why you feel the way you feel about said policy or about said company doing something or about said president getting elected. I mean, watching Van Jones talk about Trump's election, this was a white lash. That's quotable. You can't quote
right.
Trump elected 45. So I get it.
Absolutely. And they know what they're doing. Just like Jason Whitlock the other night on the
Yeah.
news. You have five black men attack another black man, ended up killing him to death. And what does Jason Whitlock go on Fox News and say? Oh, this is because of black baby mama culture. Like, are you freaking kidding
What?
me? Are you
I didn't hear that. I was waiting for you to tell me, and now I'm just incredibly disappointed. Maybe I shouldn't be.
Disappointed is an understatement. It's so ridiculous and absurd that they want these quotables. You have people that want these quotables, they want these viral moments that they will say and do anything. And it's ridiculous, and it's just crazy to watch. And maybe that's why I still where I am, because I still have my soul inside of me, and I'm just not willing to do and say certain things for clicks and
Yeah,
views and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I have a real life to live, and I'm just not into it. I'm not into it.
yeah,
And all of them do it across the political spectrum. All of them.
So
All of them. I'm talking about.
how do you identify? Because that was the
Oh,
original
that
question.
was a question. That was a question, by the way. And so yeah, after my walk away video, I started doing more research into these different, political ideologies. And honestly, I didn't land anywhere. I started looking more into like the Republican ideology. And obviously, a lot of those values, when you're just looking at the foundation of these words and ideologies, I am not talking about your favorite personality and what they
Hmm.
say and what their opinion is. I'm
Right.
literally just talking about the ideology, right? And looking at some of those things, I was able to identify more with protecting life. I was able to identify with, working hard. These are the keys if you want to avoid a subpar life. Like this is the direction that you need to go if you want to be able to build something and do something for yourself. um Family, right? Like the structure of the nuclear family. It was a lot of things that resonated me with me, and I can't even really say resonated with me. This is literally how I was freaking raised. But then as it related to actual Republican candidates, you know what I mean, and a lot of the things that they were doing or not doing, it's just a lot of stuff that I could not relate with. You look at how they, talk about Israel. Now you're ready to support speech laws when it comes to certain people. You do not back up your citizens when it comes to police brutality. And the Second Amendment is actually supposed to be for the citizens protecting themselves against the state. Where are you standing on if you know that a lot of people are having trouble starting these families because they're dealing with college debt? Regardless of your theories, this is an actual problem that people are facing, which is why people are taking longer to start families. And we know that's going to affect the country at a later time. But this Republican platform is choosing to absolutely ignore it. And it's just so many other things that, I mean, those are some of the main ones coming to mind that, I just do not agree with how we treat people that willingly want to do drugs. I don't think that somebody should come bursting in your house because you want to do drugs to your body as a sovereign individual. If you are not doing it on private property, and if the citizens don't have to turn around and pay for your health bills and your health decisions, then I think that people get to do what they want. If people buy a product and you feel some type of way about taxes, tax it and let's move on. You know what I mean? But making people prisoners, practically slaves, for selling a product that somebody wanted for however many years, in a lot of ways treating drugs as bad as murder or rape, I just think is absurd. I think it's absurd. And I just think we overwhelmingly have not handled the quote unquote drug war, appropriately. So once I started looking at some of those things, I'm like, yeah, I can't rock with that either, you know?
Mm.
So, and I think even that kind of leads into why I've decided to take a pause on the more political aspect of it. Obviously, I still talk about some things here and there as I'm focusing on the 2A, but um I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm black pilled, because first of all, I want to be clear, because some people define that differently. And if you go on Google, they gonna make it seem like all black pillars are like incels and all that, and
Right.
obviously I'm not an incel.
Rhonda's an
How-
incel. Shoot, that's a headline.
However, um some of these things, I just kind of get like, man, like this will never change. Like we just need to get as I've gotten to the point where I'm like, we need to get as far away from the system as we can, like homesteads, homeschooling, like screw all of the licenses, the contracts with the state. If I can get out of paying taxes, I want to get out of it altogether and pay less as possible. I don't want anything that the government is recommending, like we need home births, I don't want any government backed vaccines. Like I don't want them. I need to go to the local farmers because they dipping in the food supply. Like that's to the level, that's to the level that I am now. It's
Yeah.
almost like y'all not even trying to, and me being in some ways almost like 1%, 2% removed at this point from actual politicians. Y'all, a lot of this is for show. It's for show. And I know this for certain. Even with some of those activists, celebrities, and entertainers, these people behind the scenes, they're not who they're not behind the scenes who they pretend to be in front of the cameras. It's a lot of funny money. It's a lot of backdoor deals. And once you see it, it's just like, like
Yeah.
I just
It's a grift.
it's just cringe. And I don't know, man. Like it's like, do I really want to spend more time talking about this when I could be somewhere hanging with my family? I could be like, pushing my life forward in other aspects beyond just what I do here.
Yeah. Because, it's interesting. Like, being online is one of the things that you do, but it's not who you are. You're not Rhonda Mary, the online personality. I don't even know if that's your real name. You lying to the
Right.
people?
No,
There you
not
go.
lying to the people.
Yeah,
Rhonda Mary is what they call me.
it,
That's
it
my
it is what they
name.
call you. That is what they call you. But it's not what your mama calls you. All good. You don't
My
have to
mama
tell us.
calls me Rhonda.
Very cool. I do want to touch on what you're doing for Black History Month before we wrap. I know February, Black History Month, a lot of people are really weird about it. A lot of people are really weird about MLK. Like a bunch of Republican, talking heads came out against him recently talking about why we give him a holiday. He was a philanderer and this and this and that. And I'm like, y'all just can't help it. Y'all just hate black people. Like, you can't just out the woodwork just say stuff like that and then not expect me to feel like this is a targeted attack on blackness, which is a weird thing to say. And I don't like to feel like I'm contributing to this conversation of like blacks against whites, my blackness, this and this and this collective mindset. Because I think everyone's an individual, everyone's experience in life is different, and your melanin affects you differently depending on who you are and how much money you have. Just in my opinion. That said, let's talk about it. Black History Month is coming up, or by the time this episode occurs, it'll be the beginning of the month. And you have implemented a plan of several days of Black History content. I don't know how you're going to manage it with a life, but you're going to do it. I have faith. And why are you doing it? What inspired you to do this? And what are you doing?
So I have decided to do 28 days of Black History gun facts. A lot of times, every year when Black History rolls around, you have these very disempowering stories, right? It's always about what happened to us. But not only do I want to empower people and put something different into the ether, what sometimes tends to be an echo chamber, but I also just want to talk about who we are in spite of what happened to us. And so, believe it or not, what inspired this was a couple of months ago, I was interviewed on a podcast called The Twisted Youngins, and this guy named Dez, okay? And I'm not going to fully all the way go in on him because I think that you kind of have to have that contrarian and that person that gives you a little pushback. But I was on his podcast and he kept asking like, how have guns, help black people, and this hasn't gotten us anywhere, and da 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 da. And he claimed to be for Second Amendment rights, but literally almost everything he was saying was anti Second Amendment. But anyway, at that time, right, I think the Civil War would actually be the most obvious answer. For you had tons of black people, not even just black people, but white men that stood right alongside them. A lot of people even losing their lives um for freedom, for black people to start this trajectory of really being recognized as citizens. And so um it inspired me because I'm like, even though this is a good question, in some ways he was pressing me, I felt like it was a good challenge because I needed to talk about this more. I needed to dissect these things. I have been talking about it a little bit here and there, talking about how gun control was historically racist, talking about how during the civil rights movement, you in fact had a lot of black people, particularly black people in the South, that were adamant about their gun rights. But now, going back to how we discuss black history, every single month you see these videos coming across your timeline of us being beat over the head, of us having gashes in our head, bleeding, dogs sicked on us, and all of these other very disempowering things. And don't get me wrong, history is important, but I also believe that it's important that we have a balance. We need to talk about our overcomer stories. We need to talk about how we push forward. We need to talk about how we have had a direct impact on advancing constitutional rights, human rights, along with civil rights. And so I want to really take this 28 days to focus on how Black people in particular have been significant, very significant, to not only supporting but protecting the Second Amendment, and how time and time again we've used our gun rights as citizens in this country.
Let's go. I love to see that, and I'm excited to see what you come up with in regards to unearthing some of these facts that are unfortunately forgotten in a sense. Many
Yes,
people are
absolutely.
disregarding it, and it's extremely interesting to me considering I just heard some news today that DeSantis down in Florida, the governor of Florida, just kicked back some educational bills because it had quote unquote CRT and some queer theory stuff in it, which is interesting. And I hear they're going to be revisiting it. I'm like, it is quite interesting how we have 1 month dedicated to Black history. A lot of it is the woe is me stuff, which I think is important to talk about what happened, how it happened, why it happened, who it happened to. But we don't need to start Black history at slaves. We lived in Africa for a long time. When I say we, you know, people of deep melanin came from Africa and were brought over, but it didn't start at the being brought over. It started a long time ago. There's a long and luscious history that has been disregarded, and even in the history that occurred here on this soil and these lands, which are our lands, by the way. Like, it's, as much as it's anybody else's, it's ours. We built a strong percentage of it, and I'm not saying that to be some sort of like, oh, we built this and it's ours, but maybe we did, and maybe it is. Back on topic. I'm excited because it's like, hey, we're finally getting a chance to talk about it. We're finally getting a chance to hear it from somebody who's spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure the information is accurate. Clearly, if they've made it this far, they've heard you say, like, you don't say things to sensationalize them. You're just giving us the information, and if it's scary, it's scary. If it's not, it's not. So I'm hopeful that a few more people will be educated. You have a big enough following that it's like, hey, like when people finally, when you put the information out there, it's gonna, a few of them are gonna pop off, and more people will be educated onto the truth about Black gun ownership in America. and how it's actually impacted us. So thank you for doing that. I know you don't need me to just continue saying thank you, but um, I think it's really cool.
Yes, thank you. And it is quite the commitment. It's a lot of research, it's a
Yeah.
lot of video time, but I think it'll be worth it. It honestly, I felt challenged and I feel like this is something I need to do not only for like my resume or whatever you want to call it, but I just want people to know the truth about a lost history, a overlooked history. Like we're so much more than getting beat over the head with billy clubs.
So I do want to touch on the interesting fact that when you look at Black history, we have the Black Panthers who were villainized, yet we look at the obvious attempts against the Black Panthers by, let's say, like the FBI to destroy the organization, the good and the bad, everything that came with it. We have MLK, who you've said it in the past that he even applied for a concealed carry permit, was denied due to the shall issue nature of his state that he lived in, which, shall issue versus may issue, being that, basically the sheriff or whoever's in charge of concealed carry permits can choose to deny you just because. They can come up with a reason. They can always come up with a reason. So, and even looking at Malcolm X, who seemed like was always positioned as more pro gun, and I think maybe his religion wasn't right, so his in the sense that it didn't mesh with the current American values, so he was clearly more suppressed and clearly a little bit more radical than MLK in the sense that he was more pro. And I don't want to speak
Isn't
wrongly.
it messed up? Isn't it messed up that we label Malcolm X as more radical when he
Yeah,
was actually like a regular American? Like
he was a pretty
imagine that.
regular dude. Yeah,
Imagine that, right? Like if you put any white guy from history beside Malcolm X that believed in his God-given right to protect himself, nobody would call that guy radical.
right.
Nobody,
I mean,
you
he
know?
has an infamous picture standing by the window with a firearm. It's like, at least growing up, that was the case. And now I'm just like, yo, put that on the album, like album cover. Like,
So just even just imagine you saying that is a part of why it's so important for me to share this history. And I don't think you meant that in a rude way or a bad way. I'm not saying that because Malcolm X has absolutely been pitted against Martin Luther King
right,
as like radical and militant and all this. But when you really get to the basis of the things that he was saying was really just we deserve the right to defend our lives.
right. And that's true because I've seen plenty of Malcolm's speeches and appearances, and he never said anything crazy like, yo, let's go kill a bunch of white people. Like, he never said that, at least
If you
not from what I
actually,
saw.
well, I was gonna
Intellectual. Maybe
I
he said something, but all the things that I heard him say were highly intellectual, highly for the betterment of the people he called his own, which are Black Americans struggling and trying to find equal rights, and extremely intellectual in the way that he dissected the issues that he saw with specifically the white liberals versus the white conservatives at the time, and a lot of it is spot on stuff. He wasn't some dummy,
he
some
was
crazy
he
person.
was he was an amazing orator. Like he really knew how to take topics and make them very easy to understand. And he has a lot of quotables without ever trying to sensationalize people, at least from my point of view. And so I would definitely say that he was a very great inspiration.
Absolutely. And well, let's go ahead and get to a point where we can wrap up because I know it's getting late and we want to respect your time. And first of all, thank you so much for coming on the show. I always appreciate these conversations. And there's always a moment where you go off, but it's cool. It's cool. I love it. It's good energy. That said, how can people find you? Where are you at?
You can find all of my social media over on my website, rhondamary.com. I'm pretty much Rhonda Mary. I am Rhonda Mary on everything. Some of these platforms I have had to start new pages, but it's some version of Rhonda Mary. But like I said, if you go over to my website, it has the links to my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere.
And I want to give you however long you need, but let's say 60 seconds. But if you want to take an hour, that's fine. And just plug whatever you want to plug. I mean, obviously the February Black History Month, 28 Days of Black History Month, that's coming up. But if there's anything else that you just want to quickly share, go for it.
Well, all of my information is over on rondamir.com. I have merch if you would like to support. Also, for my ladies out there that are new to concealing your firearms, I have a style guide which helps you carry for your everyday life, no matter what you're wearing or what you have on. It helps you feel just a little bit more comfortable from a woman's perspective. And so it's only $20. It's over there on rondamir.com. And yes, make sure y'all are following me on Instagram or YouTube because I will be doing it 28 days of Black History Gun Facts. And I think it's going to be really good. I think people are going to enjoy it.
That's right. I'm confident, strongly confident that people will enjoy it. People enjoy. I'm going to say most of what you do, but you know, just I guess it just depends on what who we're asking. And definitely, I think people need to go take a look at that style guide. You know, if you're on the fence, if you're like me and you're cheap as heck and you're just like, oh, $20, I don't know, shut up and go buy it. Like support people who support what you believe in. Support people who putting out good information. You'll have the guide forever. I don't make anything off of it. I just think you should get it because it's hard enough to figure out what you should wear, by yourself. Somebody's already kind of gone through the trouble of trying to figure it out, put it all in one place, and gave it to you. So support people who support what you believe in the Second Amendment. If you don't believe in the Second Amendment, thank you for listening. I appreciate it, but you should definitely believe in the Second Amendment because it supports your First Amendment right to say that you don't like the show. And shoot, where are we? I mean, is there anything else we need to cover? Is there anything
No, that's
else?
it.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, real quick, I just want to say a quick, huge, mega thank you to everyone who's in the Patreon. You guys are the real MVPs. There's like God, my family, the Patreon guys. Like, you guys are freaking awesome every month. And the community that we built, I appreciate it more than most things. There's like key lime pie, the Patreon. So thank you so much. And if you are interested in joining, if you're interested in saying like, hey, I'll throw $5 toward the show on a regular basis because I enjoy the content's free, jump down there and consider. That said, wherever you are watching or listening from, thank you so much for joining us. And until we do this again next week, hopefully it's live. I think we'll be live by the next episode. Join us on YouTube Live, Thursday nights, 8:30 Central Time. We're live for 90 minutes. It's going to be awesome. Audience Q&A. Be there, be square. But until next time, keep it costly.